welcome to Cooking Level 0. Today we're actually going to be doing our first recipe where we're going to take a bunch of the stuff we've learned before and we're going to learn how to make very basic bread. So I hope you guys learn a lot from this and hope you try it out because this is a really great way to kind of put into use a bunch of the things we've been learning. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our bowl. I like to use this kind of wide, kind of shallow one because this is also a really great bowl to be able to actually knead stuff in. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that there and we're going to use a spoon to get the flour and put it into our little measuring cup. And you can have like a cutting board or something to be able to measure it over so that you don't accidentally put it into your bowl because you don't want too much salt or too much flour or anything like that. So you want to make sure you're kind of loosening it and then make sure that you're kind of not packing it in or anything like that. Once you've gotten it full, then you're going to take a straight edge. I just use the back of the spoon. You're going to take a straight edge and you're going to just kind of wipe it and then you can put it in. And then for this recipe, it calls for 4.5 cups of flour. So two, three, 4, and we'll just leave that flour to the side in case we end up needing it anyway. 1.5. Okay, so that's our flour. And then what I like to do is kind of make it kind of even. And for this recipe we need 1 tablespoon of sugar. So we got regular white sugar and our tablespoon. Just want to be really careful. Make sure that you're looking at the tablespoon and not a teaspoon, because if you have a teaspoon of sugar and a tablespoon of salt, it's going to taste really funky. So you just want to kind of shake it, make sure that it's kind of even on the top, and then I like to just put a little line of it down the middle. And then that's the sugar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do 2¼ teaspoons of yeast. So I have my little teaspoon and my active dry yeast. And you just want to shake it. So we got half, 1, 1.5, 2, and 2¼ So I put it on one side of the bowl so that you can put the salt on the other side of the bowl, because like we learned earlier, you want to make sure you're keeping your salt and your yeast as far apart as possible, because your salt is going to kill your yeast if you're not careful. So last but not least is the salt and then the water. But so we're going to do it once again over the cutting board for our extra stuff. So we got 1/2, sorry. 1. And that is why we don't do it over the bowl. 1.5. 2.5. Perfect. Now you guys may have kind of seen, I'm sorry, I'm bad. I didn't do like the 1/4 teaspoon and the 1/2 cup. I'm bad and I guesstimate, but it's going to make my life harder later, so don't do it. Do as I say, not as I do, right? So then we're going to add the water to it. What I like to do is I like to kind of move the flour over on top of the salt and the yeast, one to kind of keep them apart for longer, but also to kind of create this well in here that we can put the water in. And you want to do lukewarm water, and you want to do 1 2/3 cups. And what you want to do is you want to set it down on a stable surface and read it from at eye level. So you're going to need to squat down and kind of read it from that way. So that way you can actually make sure you have the exact right amount of water. So you're going to put it into your little well. And then you can technically use a whisk for this. I don't recommend it because it's just bread dough is a lot thicker than like cake batter, and it's just going to clump in your whisk and it's just going to be a pain. So basically you're going to use your hands and you're just going to start squishing everything together. As you're doing this, what it should kind of do is slowly start coming together into like a solid mass. Kind of stringy because we're not kneading it yet, and it's going to stick to your hands for a while. But if it continues to stick to your hands, or it's like super hard to touch it without it like sticking to everything, you might need a little bit more flour. If it's not coming together into a solid mass and it's literally just like little bits of it that fly everywhere, then you might need more water. So I think I actually got the ratio pretty good on this, but we'll see. So you're just going to keep on making it. It's going to slowly start coming together as a ball. And the reason I really like this bowl is because now I can literally just knead this in here. So if you want to, you can turn it out onto a oiled or floured surface. I have a kneading mat below this, but you don't need the kneading mat. We learned earlier in some of the classes that oiled surfaces could be better because it doesn't affect the texture of the bread as much. But I kind of found that this bowl works really well. So your goal is just to kind of stretch it out with either the heel of your hand or the top of your hand. And you're just going to turn it 90 degrees and you're just going to keep on going. And I'm kneading it while it's in the bowl and using it to pick up the rest of the flour that's still in there. And you're going to be kneading it for about 7 to 10 minutes. So it's definitely a workout. But you're just stretching forward, folding in on itself, turning 90 degrees, and then stretching forward, turning, folding, stretching forward, turning, folding. And you'll find a rhythm eventually, and it's just keep it going. And you will do this until it forms a nice smooth ball. At first it's going to be really lumpy. You're going to still be slowly taking off all the flour from your hands. It'll pick a bunch of it off for you, but you're still probably going to have to wash your hands eventually. But eventually it's going to get smooth and you'll start to feel it forming like this elastic feeling because of the gluten in it. And when you've poked it and it rebounds back, then you know that it is done being kneaded and you're ready for the next step. So I'm going to record this entire part, and Miss Jill, our wonderful editor, can fast forward it and we can have a time lapse of this because you guys probably don't want to watch this entire process. And you can kind of see mine kind of slowly coming together into a ball. It's kind of picked up most of the flour at this point. My hands aren't too bad. You can keep picking stuff off your hands though. As this is resting, you want to make sure you're putting away all of your ingredients though, because things like the yeast need to go back in the fridge or they're going to go bad. So remember, food safety. There we go. So now if I'm pushing down on it, most of the bumps or the dents that I make are kind of coming out. So, and I can really feel the elasticity because as soon as I, do my move to stretch it, it kind of bounces back immediately. So what we're going to want to do, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of the stuff on my hands. So So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take olive oil and I'm going to just lightly drizzle it in here. We don't need a lot, we just want a little bit to keep it from getting stuck. And you're just gonna kind of move it around. And you can actually use the ball of dough to do this too. I'm kind of lazy like that, I'm sorry guys. But then you're gonna like kind of leave it in the middle and you're gonna get some cling wrap. And you're just going to kind of lay it over the bowl. It doesn't need to be really tight of a seal. And this bowl's kind of big. You just want to basically make sure that the dough has plenty of room to grow because you're going to let it rise for a while. But you also want to make sure that it's not going to get a skin on it that will make it harder to proof it and shape it. And it will also make it, you know, it just looks kind of icky. So you don't want to do that. So once you've wrapped it, you're going to go ahead and set it either in the fridge, because we found out that if you let this rise in the fridge, then it does add more flavors. So you can put it in the fridge and let it rise overnight, or you can leave it out like I have it right now and let it rise for a minimum of 2 hours. Basically, you're just going to let it double its size. Once it's doubled its size, it's probably ready to go ahead and shape and knock back. So we will continue with that step next time. Okay, so here's our dough after it's risen. As you can see, it's puffed way up. So what we have to do now is we need to knock it back and then we need to shape it into our loaves of bread. But first what I want to do is I want to prep the tray for it so that we can put them right on there as soon as we get them shaped. So you're just going to take your baking sheet and you can either put oil directly on this or you can put a layer of parchment paper on here. Parchment paper it makes your life and cleanup a lot better. I use a lot so that it really covers everything and I don't have to clean anything. So you can do that, and then you're going to do your drizzle of olive oil. I like to use quite a lot on this part of it because I do like the soaked in olive oil aspect of the baked bread. So it's kind of like a cracker-like in the end. So you're just going to make sure that it's all spread out. And then you want to save this paper towel that has the olive oil on it so that later we can use it on the top of the bread. And now we're ready to start shaping our dough. So first, to knock it back, you can punch it. So you're going to just start slowly working out all of the air. And you're going to pick it up and you're going to toss it in half, rip it in half. And then you want to kind of start just forming it into a loaf shape, however you want to have it shaped. I'm going to do 2 long loaves of bread. So just 2 ovals, kind of rolling it to keep everything kind of together. Try to get rid of all those creases, but it's almost impossible to get rid of all of them, so it's okay. Then once I'm pretty happy with it, I will move it over onto the baking sheet. And then we do the other one. Get my bowl out of the way. So now basically what we have is we have our 2 loaves on our baking sheet that has been greased. Gonna move the mat out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pat the olive oil on the paper towel onto the top of these and kind of around the sides. That way, because we're gonna recover them in the plastic wrap, and that way it doesn't end up accidentally sticking to the plastic wrap. Because especially now at this stage, you really don't want it sticking to anything, because then you'll have to reform your loaves and everything and it'll make you sad. So then you can try to reuse the same plastic wrap as before. It's pretty much the same deal. You just want to avoid most of the air. It doesn't have to be airtight. And you're just going to cover your loaves. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to let these proof. Basically, they're going to get bigger again. We want to let them sit until they've puffed up, but they're not collapsing in on themselves. If they do start to collapse, then we have to knock out all the air again and reshape them. Basically, the goal is we're going to let them proof for 45 minutes to an hour until when we poke, it remains this time. And that's pretty much our goal with the proofing. And then from there, we just have one final step to prep them. We're going to slice some decorations into them basically, and then they will be ready for the oven. Okay, so as you guys can see, these have puffed up a whole lot. I'm assuming they're going to be done proofing, so I'm kind of risking it and taking everything off right now. And then we're just going to poke to test it, and it's kind of staying dented, so we know we're good. So now what we want to do is we're going to make 3 shallow slits on each one, both to make it look kind of pretty, but also it helps it bake more evenly. So we haven't really covered slicing and dicing yet. So what you want to do when you're trying to make these slits is you want to make sure you're using a back and forth motion, not up and down, if that makes sense. So you're not trying to chop, you're trying to slice. So basically you want as little pressure going down as you can get it. And just 3 slices. They said about 1/2 inch. So pretty shallow. Oops. I shouldn't have used the bread knife for this part, but it's okay. Okay. So once you have those and once your oven's heated up and everything, you will be ready to pop these in the oven. They're going to bake for 25 minutes or so at 450, and you'll know they're done if you pick it up very carefully with an oven mitt and everything, and knock on the bottom. It'll sound hollow. Definitely use an oven mitt though. You guys have no idea how many times I've almost burned my fingers last week making like bread and stuff. So like no joke. So okay, so I am going to put these in the oven, and then I will show you guys what they look like when they're done. Okay, so this is what our finished loaves look like. They just came out of the oven, so they're still very hot. They are on a cooling rack right now. You should really let your bread cool down completely before you start slicing it. It can affect the texture, plus they're still kind of cooking on the inside a little bit. Like I said, how I told that they were done was I used an oven mitt, grabbed one, knocked it on the bottom, and it kind of gives off a hollow sound. They're too hot to do that without oven mitts, sorry guys. When you're ready to slice them, once they've cooled down, you want to use something nice and serrated, kind of like this bread knife, or you could use like a steak knife. But just remember, use a back and forth motion, not like an up and down motion, because you're slicing, not dicing. So, but yeah, these are great, fresh little rolls that we made ourselves. They're maybe not the prettiest rolls of bread, but they're going to be super tasty, and I'm going to enjoy them immensely. So I hope you guys get to try this, and you guys get to put into practice some of the things we've been learning, and have a great day. Bye.